Hello guys, and welcome back to a new episode. So today I'm going to talk about the Canon EOS R. Now, this camera is a camera that Canon released way back in 2018. And at this time, I could see that this was one of the best hybrid cameras to ever exist. And ever since it was released way back in 2018, we've had so many new cameras released since then. And we want to know today, how does this particular camera stack up in 2026? So without wasting much time, let's get right into today's video. So guys, the Canon EOS R. Wow, a very beautiful camera even up to today. So this particular camera, the Canon EOS R, was the first full frame mirrorless camera that Canon released. It has so many good features. It could shoot 1080p, 60 frames per second. And also at that time, it had C-Log. And during that period, the only kind of cameras you kind of see C-Logs on was more of like the cinema cameras and I think the 5D Mark IV. But this particular camera also came out with C-Log in it, which was very cool for a lot of people. So many people got this particular camera because of that. It could shoot 4K, even though for me, I didn't kind of see this camera as a 4K camera based on some of the limitations it had in 4K 30 frames per second, and also without autofocus and it crops in and all that. So for me, I just saw it to be like more of like a 1080p camera than a 4K camera. It could do C-Log, as I said earlier on, and you could easily switch between, pictures and video. And at that period, no one was really doing 4K stuff. So most people were okay with 1080p. Another good thing that it had was that it could also, when you're recording over HDMI, it could record ProRes and all that. You could record higher quality, with higher bit rate and all that. So it could do all those good stuff, back in the day. And back in the day, for you to have a camera that has C-Log and all that, you'd have to go in for more of like the cinema cameras before you can have that. C-Log wasn't really common in mirrorless cameras, or log profile weren't really common in cinema and in mirrorless cameras. So having this particular camera, with a very small body, and using the same LPE6 batteries with a very good battery life, being able to shoot good 1080p with good autofocus and also shoot that in C-Log, which made it very interesting to so many people. Now, let's talk about this particular camera in 2026. How does this particular camera stacks up in 2026? Now, in 2026, will I say get this camera, or will I advise anyone to get this camera? In 2026, there's so many good cameras out there. But for me, what I would say if you want to get something like this in 2026 is get it used, and get it for a very affordable price. If you get it for a very affordable price, why not? And also, if your workflow doesn't demand 4K videos, you can go in for this particular camera. But one thing you should be mindful of, one particular thing that you should be mindful of is that this particular camera has the Canon ugly and wasteful 30-minute cap. That, I don't want to use some words, that awful 30-minute cap. So what does that mean? It means when you're recording and it hits that 30-minute mark, it's going to automatically stop recording. So when you're recording an interview or you're doing a podcast or something like that, you would have to stop it within the 28 to 29 minutes range, stop it and start recording again. I hated that feature with my old camera. I hated that feature because it limits you actually. So if you are going for this camera, one key feature that you could actually use this camera in today's world in 2026 is that you can use this camera for social media stuff. If most of the stuff you do is maybe under 30 minutes, and most of the stuff that you do is mainly going to be on social media like Instagram Reels and TikTok and all that. This is a very beautiful camera, because with TikTok and with Instagram, 4K is not really necessary. I think for me, I think it's an overkill. But you could actually use a camera like this because it has a very, very decent battery. Actually, it also has a very decent autofocus, and it can shoot in C-Log and all that. So you can actually use this for more of like a behind the scene camera. You could also use it for social media stuff, reels and all that. Also, if you are getting this camera for its photography features. Now, I am not a photographer, but I've kind of used this camera back in the day for some couple of pictures, and good, oh my, this is a very, very good camera for pictures. So I think for me, who I would advise to get this particular camera in 2026 is mainly photographers who kind of do some sort of, Instagram reels or some TikTok videos here and there. I think it's a good buy. It's a good buy, especially when you get it for a very affordable price. You get it used for a very affordable price. I think it's a very, very, very good camera. So those are the people that are advised to get this particular camera. But if you are really, really serious with filmmaking and you want to do 4K stuff with high bit rate, then I'll tell you to stay away from this particular camera. And especially having that 30-minute, cap, I don't think it's very, very good for you if you want to do something like that. And also if you want to do that for the long term. So for photographers, or someone who is just starting out, who wants to just learn about how the camera works and all that, I think it's also a good buy. And also, like, even though we've moved into a space where, people would love to shoot in 4K and all that, I think there's still a market for 1080p. So many people are still shooting in 1080p. So there's still a market for that as well. Also, with all that said, that doesn't mean you can actually shoot 4K stuff with this. You can actually do that, especially when you have a way to, go above all those limitations. Maybe you are just shooting something, and you can actually manually focus, or you don't really have to rely on the autofocus in 4K, and the crop factor is also not a problem. You can actually do that. But if this is going to be your main camera for 4K videos, totally, like, most of the stuff that you do is going to be in 4K, then I don't think it's a good buy. But if most of the stuff that you do is going to be in 1080p, and maybe once in a blue moon, you kind of have something that you would really want to shoot in 4K, they can also do that as well. So that is what I'm going to say about the Canon EOS R. It was a good camera and it's still a good camera, but just know its limitations in today's world. And if you are getting it, make sure those limitations are not going to affect you. So without wasting much time, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We want to build this community. We want to, expand. So please subscribe, share these videos, and we will see you in the next video. Let's go.